Hello, it's Scott Manley here, and today I'm going to take a look at Opus Magnum, the latest puzzle game from Zachtronics. As you know, I'm quite a fan of Zach Barth's work, and this is actually, I think, one of the most accessible ones he's done yet. Instead of being chemistry or electronics or computer science, it is alchemy. Okay, so chemistry and alchemy have a bit in common, but this is kind of alchemy as done by nanotechnology. So, usual plot is that you basically have some flavor text to explain what you're doing. This guy's trying to graduate. You are Anatius Via, that is your name. And you have to build the solutions to solve the problems. So I'm just going to show you the first solution I did here. And yeah, you start out with reagents. So these are your inputs. And you want to create this product. So the product is is stabilized water, but it is elemental water and salt. So stabilized salt. Now, to make the salt, you only have water to start with. But you can take the elemental water and move it over this glyph of calcification, and then it drops it on here. It becomes a neutral salt. So the instructions are assigned to each of these arms. This is a fixed length arm here. You see the instruction track down here. So I grab it, I then rotate it twice, and that will rotate it over this, turning it into a neutral salt. And then I'll release it, and then I just drop a reset instruction so it turns itself back. This one here, again, we grab it right away, but we do minus, which moves it along this track. So we slide over one spot, and once the other item gets here and gets dropped, we should bond the two together because this is a glyph of bonding, and then we drop along to the last part, and then we formed our system, or formed our chemical. Bingo! Beautiful, right? It builds these amazing hypnotic machines. Now, this is obviously the earliest level. It's a very simple example, and this was my first version of it. And it rates you afterwards. You get to see how you scored in terms of cost for the hardware, the number of instruction cycles you did. So it tells me that this one took 46 cycles. And the area, of course, is the size, the operational area. Now, I went and made some optimization. So here is version where I try to minimize the area. You see area is dropped way down here. It's on the left side of the curve, which is good. My cost is on the low end as well, which is good. But see how I've changed the layout here to make it faster. I've replaced those two arms with a single piston arm, which has the ability to extend and retract as well. So this single piston arm gets to do all the work on its own. And because it's doing that, it only has a limited amount of area. It's very cheap. It's just not very fast. It uses many, many cycles to get things done. So I also did one where I optimized for cycles. I did it in 25 cycles. You see this one, I use these big spinny fast things instead, right? We go like that. Brilliant. See that? Excellent, excellent, excellent. And yeah, did it in 25 cycles. How beautiful. Did not optimize for area, did not optimize for cost. So, as you get your skills, you go through this whole story, and I'm going to point out that I bought this game, I get given this game, I get given this game because I play all the other Zachtronics games, and I love Shenzhen IO, I played the heck out of that, but this one I got and I completed it within a week, because I love them. So, unlike many games, I've actually played all the way through the main plot, although I have left the super hard puzzles for later. So yeah, you start out, you have some basic stuff to work with. You know, you're part of a great house. The great house comes under attack and you have to build, weapons and stuff. So here's me building an explosive file, which means a slightly more complicated chemical. This needs a three-way bond, which means you gotta spin this thing around here. So again, my first example of this made sure that we hit all the bonds and then rotated itself around. That was reasonable, but if we come back, I then thought, well, let's see if I can optimize this, right? So I optimized it down. We moved the two things, the two inputs here, and yeah, it's a bit faster, a bit more expensive, but it still has a long way to go in terms of priority. Now, your reagent inputs are limited, so frequently you have to build your machine around those, and you're gated on how fast you can get the stuff off those inputs. This is an even faster version. Instead of having one side that works with both inputs, I split it into two sides creating the same product from the same input or from separate inputs. And this is where it really starts to take off. You can see this is just beautiful. Again, there's people that have done it faster than me. I'm gonna have to figure that out. But yeah, the game, unlike many other Zachtronics games, Shenzhen IO was fantastic, but you kept on running into levels where you had problems that you had trouble solving. And, you know, you were gated on that. You just couldn't go any further until you had solved the puzzle. And then, once you solved it, you might have gone back and made it faster. With Opus Magnum, the puzzles aren't necessarily easier, but a lot of the constraints that caused headaches in Shenzhen IO have been removed. There's no limited area. You have an infinite area to work on, so you're not going to be hitting boundaries. You will end up hitting parts of your own machine. That's the kind of hardest part for optimizing for size. But yeah, you're going to solve the puzzles a lot easier, even if they're not as efficient. And then you're going to see these charts, you're going to see these cycles, and you're going to say, how the heck did they do it in that many cycles? And you're going to go back and you're going to want to beat it. And that's really one of the more beautiful things. Here's me making gold. So there's the elements that are available in the game, incidentally, as part of the puzzle, is you have obviously earth, air, fire, and water. You have the neutral salt, and then you have vitae and mors, that's life and death. These can be created by processing salt in a special glyph. And then over here you have metals. And now lead is the basic metal, mix it with quicksilver, you get tin, iron, copper, so on. So there's a glyph that does that, but also you can take 2 leads and make a tin, and then you can take 2 tins and make an iron, and 2 irons and make a copper. So that's what this machine is doing here. We have 4 leads coming in, and it passes the way up the chain here. And again, you know, it looks rather nice. It's just kind of wonderful when these things work and look pretty. There's some solutions out there. Your first solutions are never going to be pretty, but this was my first solution, and I think it looks pretty good. And then I made the mistake of looking at the internet to see what they had come up with, and it turns out there's a lot of people doing crazy things. For example, Centipus on Reddit posted this that solves the gold puzzle in 122 cycles. It does cost 3 times as much. And at the other end of the scale, you have Peenlocket, who solves the same puzzle in an area of 9 and a cost of only 70. Yeah, this game really has a great community around it at this time. Lots of great ideas. Right now, it is still early access, but it's a fully functioning game. The only thing that's really being changed around is some of the puzzles, some of the scoring. I saw Zach on Twitter saying, you know what, I think we need to make pistons a bit more expensive because everybody just ends up using them in all their puzzles. Here, where is it? Here's the final one, the universal solvent. Actually, here's a better one. Here's the curious lipstick. Curious lipstick is obviously used in a plot. I can't tell you how the plot works unless you want, that would be spoilers. Suffice to say that the molecule that you create has a big ring of death. And the way you make death is by mixing salt together, and you get life and death, and you have to dispose of the life. So again, let's watch this thing work here. This here is a wheel of elements. You combine it with the glyph of duplication, and it lets you convert a salt into whatever element you need. So look, I've created my ring and then bonded on there, and now I have some of this curious lipstick. Something that will advance the plot, let's say. Yeah, so we do have the puzzle editor where you can design your own, and Steam Workshop. So let's see if we can actually solve one of these. So I've not touched this. This is my first time going in. This is what I want to create. Now, the way I see this is I want to do something like that. Right, watch this. So we've got inputs. Yeah, do that. And we have this as our singular input here. So I think what you want to do is try to slip that on here, right? Actually, let's rotate that around to make sure it's right. But we also want to unbond it. This is going to be the fun part where we have to drop it on here, unbond it, and then put the stuff in one place or another. So let's try this. And of course you got. So let's just do it with rails to make things as simple as possible. I'm just going to try to show you how this works. Okay, like this. I'm trying to do this. There we go. So we'll do a rail up one side and this here. And we can do a rail up the other side as well, right? I think that'll work. I don't know. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so we'll just run it with 2 rails. This is not going to be a fast solution. It's going to be a solution which I can code quickly, like this. And again, we'll have one of these. Actually, I've done this backwards, haven't I? There. So yeah, we get 2 things that will run back and forth and move stuff. So number 1, what it's going to do is slide the piece all the way up to the front. So number 1 is going to grab. So we hold down G and click on the timeline. And then to slide, sorry, we hold down F on the timeline, then we hold G. We're going to move it up to the top. So we move it up 3 times and then we release it there, right? So we've already bonded this. Now this needs to return, so we're going to do TTT, right, to slide back down to here. But we're actually going to return it one further point, because while this is sliding up here, number 2 is going to grab the other part. So it has to wait for this one to go. So we do it here, again, grab, and instead of going up, oh, it is actually going to go up now, so G, and that means this is going to unbond it. So now it's unbonded, it is only holding a fire atom, so we'll slide it all the way up to there. So that will be minus, 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 and then release. So it can't do anything until the other salt is fixed out the way. So this has just arrived. That's here. We're gonna, yeah, sorry, T to grab, sorry, F to grab, and then plus, plus, plus. Yeah, 3 pluses. 1, 2, 3. Release. Release. So you see, I'm just writing these by holding the button down and clicking on the timeline. So that should drop that there, and that should drop that there. So I can now step through the solution to see what I'm doing wrong, and you see that I got this backwards. That was totally obvious, and I bet you many of you mentioned that before I actually did it. So now I've learned the error of my ways, I can sequence through this again. Ah, you see, that's going to be a problem. Here's me thinking there was a way to do this. So instead, yeah, these things are going to have to fold their stuff out of the way temporarily and then fold it back once they get here, right? So this grabs it, slides it down, and instead of immediately sliding back up, it's going to rotate the object out of the way, slide up, and rotate back, and then release, right? So again, this is grab. Once it gets here, it's going to rotate it out the way. And you can, of course, grab this and rearrange it and cut and paste and copy. So this should work. Oh, no! Maybe this won't work. Okay, so I figured out what I think I'm going to do here. It's a really dumb thing, but since I've gone with this design, I'm going to work with it. So I've just dropped this one here. This can actually move backwards, right? 2 spots, and it's in a position to grab this. So if it grabs it and then rotates it out the way, this should no longer spawn, and this should work, right? So let's see how far that goes. Move that out the way, grab, spawn, there, you see? Beautiful. So now this thing can, of course, rotate itself back. And now it's got that, it can actually move up and then release. So that should have made the product, right? So we should at least get as far as making the product in question. Oh, did it the wrong way again. That's kind of funny that I made that dumb mistake. So now the next part is this thing needs to somehow get moved off of here. So this is just dropped it here. So why doesn't this thing could start resetting, or this thing could fold it out the way, or I think what we'll do is we'll drop a reset on both of these and then add a little thing here that rotates the item around out of the way. So we're going to grab it and rotate it 2 points, right? So do, and that'll be where our exit is. this will be here now, and that'll be where the final thing is, and then we'll release it. So, after we've done all this, after this has been released, we'll grab it, and then we'll rotate, rotate, release, reset. And so this whole thing should work now. Famous last words, right? This is totally ugly, but hey, it's working. See? Brilliant. So, Opus Magnum, it's another Zachtronics game. You'll know those games if you played those games. I'm going to say that if you've ever hated on Zachtronics games because they were too hard, because you got stuck and you couldn't progress, I don't think that is this game. This game is definitely a lot more forgiving in completing the levels, but it also offers a much wider range of things that you can do to actually improve targets to beat, and a huge amount of workshop content. It is still early access, but it is fully functional, and if you're a fan, you absolutely should get this game. I'm Scott Manley, fly safe.